Ryan, and we're going to talk about my mental health issues, my marriage, and oh, look at Jackie's face just crumbling already. No, I'm just kidding. She gets so sad. Jackie like goes immediately to fear when I start saying like, "Hey, we're gonna talk about my mental health," and she's like, "No," but not in a mean way. She's just like, "Dude, come on, let's snap out of it." All right, but I'm Ryan. I am a coach person, and what is it? Who
For
are you?
me, it's
Yeah,
for
do it.
I'm Jackie, and I am a coach, student, person. I think I tag on entity at Flow
At
State
Flow
Martial
State.
Arts.
So I'm Ryan. I'm a coach student person at Flow State Martial Arts. And who are you to my right, sir? My right, but the camera right.
Well, I'm glad it's on your right and not your wrong. Um, but
There's too many
I'm
dad
John
jokes.
Anthony Bochnowitz, and I'm with Supportive Alliance, and we help people to identify their fears and shames and how to heal them.
There's one piece that you're missing that I want to come back to later, and maybe not missing, but sometimes you say it. Something along the lines of helping people remove violence from their homes. Is
Their
that what you
lives.
say?
I've said that in the past. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm trying to get away from just people who are violent in the home. Because
Yeah.
the tools work for all of us. It's about
Yeah.
learning how to
No.
process through. I know but I'm just for our viewing audience. As you process through the tools, you understand them better. But they work for all of us because we all have incidents, we all have pain and hurt, and we all you know need love. So
Yes. I totally agree. So we're going to come back to that in 1 second. I am moving here because if I don't, I'm going to fall asleep. So real quick, not to put you on the spot, Coach Jackie, astrology and well-being. Do you have anything for us? How are we going to stay healthy? How are we going to stay focused? How are we going to
Yes,
stay
I
on the mats?
do. I was thinking today about what it would be, and I was getting some ideas. And then I think I've landed on something that has helped me. And the title of that would be Taking the Emotion Out of It. Specifically, when we think we hit a speed bump or maybe what we are perceiving to be a failure. Because I know I have trouble with giving myself a hard time and beating myself up when certain things happen. So, like for instance, today, like on my fitness and health journey, I realized for the past few days that I have, because on my fitness and health journey, I log my food just to help me stay on track and to reach certain goals. And over the last 2 weeks, I had made an adjustment to what I should be eating. And this morning, I realized I was logging it incorrectly. So I was overeating a little bit the past 3 days by accident as I was logging my food. So instead of being, oh, I messed up, it's a wash, I overate, it was just kind of like, is what it is. I overate. Now let's just fix it and make it better instead of, bringing emotion into it with, criticism and judgment against myself.
yeah.
It was just kind of like moving on and being like, is what it is. When before maybe, I would have spiraled a little bit because, just
Well,
messing up.
yeah, you turned it into healthy shame. Oops, I made a mistake. You know,
Exactly.
I don't need to go, beat up on myself, put myself down. You know,
Exactly.
it's that's not going to help me to do the better thing next time.
Mm-hmm. So just, and maybe I feel like that could maybe help other people when, if that's how they talk to themselves or to treat themselves when they hit a speed bump or what they perceive as like a failure, just to take the emotion out of it. Tell themselves the same thing. There's two ways to say that, as John Anthony said, to be like, I messed up, or oh, I messed up. Like we can say the same thing, but have it be two different things because there's like kind of the reality and then again taking the emotion out of it. So that's
Well,
my little wellness.
if I could
Yes, of
if I
course.
could say something, did you take the emotion out of it, or did you show yourself that there really isn't anything to fear here? I overate a couple days. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to be just fine. So, which one do you think it was?
The second one. Well, you said that it's just going to be just fine.
Yeah, you,
Gonna
you
go
alleviated
forward.
the fear. You showed yourself there's really nothing to fear here.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I set a goal. and I made a mistake in my calculations, but it's not going to cause threaten my life. I just, oops, I made a
Oops.
mistake.
Go with the flow is what it is.
And that's what the whole "Are You a Cat" thing is about. It's about recognizing that we are responsible for addressing our fears.
Mm-hmm.
You're not responsible, and Ryan's not responsible for addressing my fears. I am.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see that and take responsibility for what I'm thinking and what I need to do to bring love into my life from me to me, and then from me to others like you and Ryan, then I'm creating a life with love, and I'm in control of what I'm doing because I'm being responsible for my thinking and my feelings. You responded to that situation when you walked through it like that, Jackie. You didn't react.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you were saying is, in the past, you would have just reacted and you would have gotten angry at yourself, or put yourself down, or just shut down and try to numb out, whatever, all the coping strategies that we learn as a child that really don't alleviate our fears like you were able to now that you're an adult.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay. So here we go. All right. So tonight's topic, I didn't tell Jackie or John anything about it. So I have recently started or restarted my therapy journey after months of abruptly ending it on my own. And what I can say are a few things. The first thing I'd like to say is that one of my good friends, Blake, some of you know her, her and I have talked about this topic before, and we do believe that there is an expiration date on your therapist in some cases. At what point does it become too much of a friend relationship? At what point do they understand your situation and those in it just a bit too much? Now they're attached in some way, shape, or form. And so here I am, and I'm restarting this journey. And so far, so good. She's very good at giving me data and examples. And it's a bit different because my last therapist, I feel that she was great for that time in my life, but in retrospect, it was a lot more conversation, friend guidance, not really tools that I could take with me in the week to apply. Excuse me. And so, by the grace of God and timing, I had a therapy session on Saturday following a pretty intense argument between my wife and I. But Monica and I did manage to have a very healthy conversation before I went to therapy. And I think that that was one of the most important parts that led to what we're going to talk about today. And that was Monica openly admitting, if you will, that she, in most cases, did not have the stamina to handle my mental health scenarios when they arise, right? And so, to be clear, what scenario arises? Well, for anybody who faces mental health struggles, sometimes we just don't know. Okay. Sometimes it could be a commercial. Sometimes it could be a song. Sometimes it could be a photo. Sometimes it could be you've read something on Facebook, whatever the case may be. And so when I brought this information to my therapist, she said there's two things. Okay. Crisis and de escalation. And she says that the majority of people are good at handling the crisis in the moment when it happens, the first 10 or 20 minutes, trying to help separate whatever is going on. De-escalation is about a 1 in 10, apparently. 1 in 10 people can handle the de-escalation, the long hours, the back and forth, the giving the person who is in the crisis exactly what they have asked for, but they're rejecting it. Okay. And so I wanted to talk de-escalation and crisis. So, John Anthony, I think you're pretty good at both at this point in your career, wouldn't you say? You're good at pretty much handling the situation when it comes out at the initial time, and then kind of helping those with the stamina piece. I believe you said one of your courses is, did you say 36 weeks? 26
26.
26 weeks. That's a long time. 2-hour sessions, right? 2-hour groups.
Yep.
That's a lot of work. You have the stamina for it? You keep that face the whole time?
What are you talking about?
You keep that nice, straight, beautiful face of yours the entire time?
Well, it's not about keeping a straight face. It's about being present and being real, and connecting with the other person in a way of validating what they're going through, but not in a way that I have to go through it too.
Mm-hmm.
I do you a favor when I validate your pain. I
Mm-hmm.
don't do you a favor when I feel your pain for myself, because now we are both challenged by that pain.
Mm-hmm. One of us has to stay in the now, the present, in the clear.
Well, if one of us is able to, then that allows the opportunity for the other person to come there. But, otherwise I could just be reacting to you, your pain, especially if your pain reminds me of something from my bag of pain, so to speak, um, then I'm going to be more likely to go to anger and join in with you and lash out at who you're blaming and who I'm blaming for my pain, because I haven't taken the next step to see what I'm doing to cause my pain. What am I thinking? What am I reacting to? What wound am I not noticing that I'm reacting to in a painful way? Because these things can happen, like you said, you don't have to make the connection. If a person's been abused in a yellow room consistently, all they have to do is go into a room that is the same color, and their body can react like they're in that room where they've been abused.
Mine's just ready. It just knows the
It
color
well, it
yellow is
notices it because
scary.
it's
Yeah.
constantly seeing things and then making predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow room. Remember the last
Here
time?
we
Yellow
go.
room. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
See, but that can be happening without us necessarily being conscious of the connection with the yellow of the room. But we are feeling, there's a part of our brain that is seeing the yellow room and remembers the abuse in the old yellow room,
Right.
and it's reacting like, hey, 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 don't you see, look, don't you see what's happening? And a lot of times we aren't, because we're trying to numb out to our pain, or we're trying to distract from our pain, or we're just getting angry at this and that, or we resort to addictions. But none of those things make our pain go away. Jackie didn't have to do any of those things to make her pain about missing the calculation on her diet with the food that she ate. So it's important to pay attention to what we're thinking.
Yes. So my therapist was giving me a lot of good examples, and I was giving, I guess, feedback from experience, if you will. My family, me, we have some experience with addiction, mental health, some pretty intense challenges, chapters in the family in our lives, and things of that nature. And we know families who have experienced all this, and I'm sure everybody knows somebody. Um, but one of the things that came up during the feedback, during the conversation, is that this is kind of where families can start to break down, per my therapist. You get somebody who went through detox. Let's just say that this is an addiction. They went through detox. They get home. We're feeling present, right? We're feeling like we're on the right track. But like you're saying, when I think some things that, or sometimes one thing that gets missed is sometimes when we go home, right? Like you said, the yellow room. Okay, so I get back to my home. This is where I grew up. This is where my parents lived. Maybe it's my parents themselves. Maybe it's a picture of a grandmother that I had a good relationship and she was the only one that listened to me. And now I look at that photo and I'm thinking about her and she's not here. And now all of a sudden my mind starts to go crazy, right? And so when it comes to the family member aspect, families in most cases through this process get some sort of guidance from a counselor, a rehab facility, their own sources, right? Therapists, counselors, whatever the case may be. But a lot of times, the family member or a family member will come back and say, I did what you told me to do. I did it. I did what you told me to do. Why is he still freaking out? Why is she still freaking out? And so here comes the de-escalation and the stamina. And let me be clear, it is a lot. It is a lot. I told you that this is what I want to hear, and you're telling me what I want to hear, but in this moment you can't tell me what I want to hear that you heard me say, because now you're trying to control me, right? And so my therapist is understanding, if you will. I don't want to say agreeing, but understanding that these are the types of reactions that you can get from somebody when they're in a crisis. Let's just say crisis, mental health crisis going down, whatever the case may be. Um, so stamina, do you have work with the family? I can't remember. I remember you worked on an individual basis, but if you give any guidance to the families, and if you do, kind of what that direction is like.
Well, the direction is that my partner isn't responsible for keeping me on track. You know, if I lay that burden on my partner, then I'm going to be relying on them to do things that I need to start to catch. And then if they don't do what I need them to do, then they're going to be coming up short for me. And then I can blame them for why I'm not where I am, instead of realizing that they can't help me like only I can help me. They
But
can
do you
only
think
give
at
me
some
gravy.
point, do you think, I think you and I may disagree on this point. Do you think at some point there may be a need for that unconditional love or some sort of support system? Because going back to what I've seen in some circumstances when it came to families and addiction and crisis and this, that, and the other thing, I've seen the families just say, he's on his own. She's on her. I can't anymore. I understand the frustration, right? But at what point do we support them enough to at least bring them back home? I'm not saying be responsible for them for the rest of their life. I'm saying get that person to a position where they are stable so that they can start doing the work themselves. Do you have any experience with that?
Well, I'm. You brought up a different thought. If I am where I am in my healing is as far as I can go with you in your healing,
Hmm.
because I so if I'm in the first dimension, I can only be with you in the first dimension.
Right.
Where I'm blaming, you know, you know, you know, nothing's going to change. It's always going to be like this. I don't have any power. You know, and then if I'm cause effect blaming, then I'm blaming you. But I need to be willing to move beyond that. But if I don't get past my second dimension of healing with my wounds, I'm not going to be comfortable with you when you're in the third dimension talking about things that I'm not allowing myself to acknowledge, let alone be there for you. And then it makes it hard because now I have to be there for you when I'm having trouble being there for myself. And then it becomes a strain on me and then a strain on our relationship. So I think it's great that you're going to the therapist to get a different perspective, but you know, you married a school teacher, not a part-time therapist.
And this is where I think again you and I may disagree because I believe that when we enter a partnership, when we enter that union, right? Till death do us part, in sickness and in health, right? And I am not saying that anybody needs to go to school, get the degree, get the hours, get whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that you need to be my counselor. That's not what you're there to do. And I think in your corner of this, you're going one, two, three, and I'm just talking about right here at the beginning to stabilize the person. If you have any insight or thought on that, step
Yeah.
one, step
Well,
one.
yeah, validating my partner's pain is important. Yes, I would agree with that. Acknowledging, that they are where they are. That's important. Yes.
Yes. No, and I will say, even just hearing you say that gives me more comfort and optimism, right? Because I say this as somebody who has been in crisis, and when you feel like everyone's dismissing you, or when everyone's making you feel like the problem, when you are the problem, right? These are the things that kind of came up in therapy when we were talking about it takes a different type of person to become a hostage negotiator. No, seriously, right? And it's just not for everybody. So stamina and de-escalation. I guess what I'm trying to get out of this whole conversation is some thoughts and maybe some tools from you more, John, and then some thoughts from Jackie, because I don't want to see any family fail. I want to see everybody succeed. I do realize that, of course, absolutely, the person who is in crisis has to start doing the work eventually. But one thing that my therapist said, she said a lot of things. The one thing that she said, and I'll kind of just skip, maybe this takes us in a different direction where we can continue the conversation regarding our partner. She said in a lot of cases, somebody can't be the person that holds you accountable and the safe space. Your mind will get confused. I agree with that. I agree with that because I live it. I live it. You're supposed to love me and be my safe space. But dang, I also really love when you help hold me accountable and help me grow. I really appreciate that. You're my safe space. Why are you holding me accountable? You get what I'm saying? The confusion that starts to come over the mind. And so this is where I was wondering if you had any tools or tactics for a family member that has to help get that person de-escalated and to the stage of John Anthony or a counselor, or any tips in regards to stamina, what somebody can do in the meantime if they're living with that person or if they are that person's number one support system.
Well, let's let Jackie respond to what's been said. If she has any input or if it's rung any bells for her, because I feel like I've been answering your questions, and I'd like to give
Yeah,
Jackie
it's
an
fine.
opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I guess so. Hypothetical situation. If right now my husband is in the other room, I know he's probably on Xbox with his friends. He's doing his own thing in his own world right now, having a good time. Let's say if I get triggered for some reason and I go in there and let's say I pick a fight and let's say I go in there and I take my bottle and I slam it down and I just start just lashing out because I'm going through something. At what point is it his responsibility, me going in there and like disrupting space? And if I'm lashing out at him, at what point does he take on that responsibility to de-escalate?
I'm going to take you a different question. If he's not paying attention to you and you're going through a crisis, who are you going to when he's not listening to you?
I'm not sure.
And the reason I say that is not to go and get you off course, but because it is my belief, and I will say it out loud, when you marry somebody, you take on that weight and that responsibility. And I'm saying it clear, not forever, not forever. Okay, but I believe firmly if you marry somebody, you take on that sickness and in health and one flesh and everything else that the Bible and everybody else loves to say, because I believe it. And if you believe in making that marriage work, if you believe in growing, right, there has to be hopefully some sort of understanding, right? There wouldn't, I don't think, well, first of all, if this was your first time doing it, I'd be like, what the heck is going on? That's first, right? So let's not even get to de-escalation or crisis. I'm just shocked. You just slammed the water bottle down. Now, let's say I know that you have struggles at times with your mental health, right? I would say that it is the individual's responsibility after the water bottle gets slammed down to say, hold on, what's going on? Let's take a deep breath. Here comes a de-escalation, right? Because some people are, what are you doing? Well, you can't just come in and slam a water bottle down. I'm angry. I'm angry. And then it just starts to go nowhere. It just starts to explode. And I think John Anthony said something something along the lines of it, that in that moment, somebody has to remain calm. I hope, right? Hopefully somebody can. So in that moment, I really hope it's your partner, not just you, anybody. I stand by that firmly, right? But how many times? How do you and your partner need help? Do you and your partner need guidance? Do you and your partner have another couple, your parents? And I'm not saying you, anybody that you can say, listen, I'm going through something at work and I'm just not having a good time. I'm just not able to deal with it and I'm taking it out at home and I shouldn't be. And I think in a lot of cases, from what I've heard, right, long-term married couples will say, "Hey, listen, marriage is dirty work. It's hard. It ain't easy. It ain't easy at all." That seems to be the reoccurring theme that I've seen. And so my point is that I don't think that there's any married couple that's living perfectly. If they are, please let us know. And I don't mean that sarcastically. Give us some guidance, give us some tools, give us some things that we can do to start to stabilize ourselves in our marriage. But I'm going to cut myself off because I'm going on a rant here. Yes, it is my belief that in that case, your partner, your husband, your wife has a responsibility to at least try to bring you down to a stable position in that moment. And especially if they are the only person on this planet Earth that you're going to in such a state of mind. End rant. I'll leave it to whoever wants to talk.
It's like you said, we can disagree.
Yes, of course we can. We're going to. We as people are always going to disagree.
Well,
But what
that
are we disagreeing on? Are we disagreeing on somebody helping us get down, helping us get stable? Are we ignoring that entire piece and system of the process?
well, you reminded me. There's an old saying. If you have two people that are living together and they don't have any problems whatsoever, it's usually because one person is always getting their way and the other person is always giving them their way.
Mm-hmm.
Then they don't have any problems because, I'm going to like something that you don't like, and you're going to like something that I don't like. And it's going to be important that we learn how to talk about those things in a way that I'm not taking it out on you. So, but, the
Well,
healing.
who said taking it out on anybody?
No, when I come in and I vent my anger, like when I come in and I slam my water bottle down,
Right.
I'm impacting whoever is going to be able to hear that.
Yes, in that scenario, of course. Yeah.
And so just because I'm upset, you know, the reaction is to do something like that because I'm not thinking, I'm just reacting. But if I want to really resolve the problem that I'm going through, I need to not react, but to respond where I look at my choices and I have to think. That takes time and it takes effort and it takes mindfulness to do that because it's so easy to just react. It's
Mm-hmm.
so easy because our body will do it. Something comes flying at my head, my body's going to react without me having to be conscious of it. Because it sees the thing, and that's there to protect us, and that's a good thing.
I think
But
I think I think with all due respect, I think John Anthony and Jackie, with all due respect, I think I keep asking, what about the initial state? And neither of you seem to agree that there could or should that the situation would be a bit better if there was somebody there giving unconditional love, if there was somebody there to stabilize the entire situation, if there was somebody there to say, listen, I understand that you're going through something. What it is that you're going through, that I do not know. But right now, I'm here to be with you, okay? I'm going to be with you. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to sit here as long as we need to, until you calm down. And I'm not going to leave you until you feel like you're good to go, okay? Okay. And I mean, there's hotlines for this stuff, guys and girls. You know what I mean? And I'll take it a step further and saying, the big reason, one of the main reasons that flow state martial arts is donation only is because I know what it feels like to be lost inside your mind and trapped and feel like nobody's listening to you. And sometimes everyone's like, well, you need to get it together. That's great. A lot of people who are going through deep, deep, deep mental health crises, addictions, they don't have the ability to pull it together to go for a job interview. They may have lost their job in itself, right? So going back to flow state being donation based, at least at the beginning and the end of the day, somebody in crisis who is trying to stand on their own 2 feet knows that they have somewhere to go to because that is the structure, that is the outlet, that is the safe space, if you will, where people will always be accepted. And so, again, either of you, I guess it's either do you agree or disagree that there would be much more success, a higher success rate, if there was someone or someone at the ground level that could help you stabilize until you get to somebody like John Anthony or somebody else? Or would you two enjoy it if you were going through a mental health crisis and nobody was there to support you and grab you? Then
I
tell me
mean,
that it's your responsibility to heal and it's all yours alone.
obviously, it's always good to have somebody there to stabilize you and help you through something. So, yes.
Stamina, de-escalation.
You know, Carolyn Meese says some things about that. She says, if I listen to you about your wound, your emotional wound, I'm doing you a service. You know, and if I listen a second time about your emotional wound, I'm doing you a service. But if you're telling me about that wound a third time, I'm no longer doing you a service.
I'm only talking about the first time.
No, so the point being that if a person has a problem and they go to their partner, and you know, when it's the same problem, but you know, they keep looking for their partner to straighten them out, then that's putting a burden on my partner. And at some point, I need to learn how to straighten myself out. So yeah,
Nobody's arguing that. Nobody's arguing that.
Validation is very important. You know, for trauma that a person's been through, it's very important to get that validation. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. The other piece that she mentioned, right? Going back to support systems and doing all the work and this, that, and the other thing, is she said that sometimes it happens in she works in a halfway house, I believe, as a counselor. She mentioned, and I never thought about this, but it makes a lot of sense, sobriety fatigue. Individuals doing the work that has been written out, doing the work that they know they need to do, doing the work that they know will bring happiness and peace to them, help them get back on track, and most importantly, right, sometimes the family, the children, your spouse, your parents, whomever, right? But it's a lot of work mentally, emotionally. If you're somebody who struggled with self-control to begin with, and now I'm at 3 months and I've been so self-controlled and I'm so over it. I'm so tired. I'm tired. I can relate. And so what I'm saying is that now I understand, and I'm not saying it's the only reason why it's important to put a marker in recovery. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year. You're doing it. Don't stop. Don't stop. Look how far you've come. You've only come 30 days. How many days did you get before? 2, 3, 30 is a big deal. Stay with it. And so what I'm saying is that I know you're saying about tell me once, tell me twice, tell me a third time, but what happens when the fatigue starts to get in and you need that stamina? And again, I'm not saying make your partner your therapist. I'm saying, is there anything for the person who is trying to be a stable partner or support system? Because we just keep talking about the person that's in crisis, not really about stamina or de-escalation. Because what I'm saying is that I don't want them to go from a police car to a courtroom to John Anthony. I think that there needs to be more steps than that.
I just feel like I'm missing a few pieces because I feel like we're maybe talking about something very specific to something you just went through.
No.
And I'm finding it a little hard to comment.
I think they were just commenting if anybody has any thoughts on support systems and stamina and how to be there for somebody or any ideas. I was more interested to see if there was any ideas from John Anthony, but I think, like you said, we're kind of just getting some circles here.
Well, support is important. See, but it also has to come from me. And that's, so I have to just be mindful, am I trying to live off of gravy, getting everybody else's support, or am I making sure that I give myself that support, that meat and potatoes, are you a cat? And so, and it's a balance, it's an ebb and flow, and it's constantly changing. It's like the ocean and the beach, every time the wave comes in, it changes the sand.
Of course.
And every experience that we go through, it has, an impact. It changes us in some way or another. It can be a positive direction, it could be a negative direction. And so I'm not sure, I don't, let's say, based on what you're saying, I don't have a tip.
Listen, at least you're like, hey, listen, I don't have any insight on what the family members can do to help the person get forward. That's fine. That's fine. And listen, like I said when you and I did that interview last week, you're John Anthony, you're the emotional counselor, right? You give us the tools. I use the tools. I use the tools. We all use the tools. Jackie uses the tools. Whereas my mother and my therapist, they're the ones that enter the brain, right? They're the ones that have the years of experience, that have a little more detail, that sit you down on the couch by yourself and really help you deep dive and open some things up. I've never seen you as that piece, with all due respect. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, well, when I was in group with John Anthony, this happened. And then my therapist can say, like, how does that make you feel? Right? How does it, and then have you go a little bit deeper, maybe, help you untangle some things, maybe have some things that you just didn't feel comfortable saying in front of the group. You know what I mean? But so I do see that there's two completely different aspects of it. And then there is completely different aspects, right? I'm asking John Anthony for some advice where it's different in the sense for my mother, who's been a psychologist for 40 years. I've seen her, heard her jump on those phone calls where she had to help be the bridge in the process to get somebody admitted into somewhere. Does that make sense? It's like, all right, John's going through it. Okay. All right. Let me make some calls. Yeah. I'm on the other line with the hospital. They're going to meet you. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work sometimes to really get somebody just calm, just stable. Does that make sense? But I guess that's not really, you're more, somebody's calm. Somebody has some direction and you're the first step in some cases, I believe.
Well, what I find is if I can be there with them in their pain, looking at the primary emotions, not the anger. Because when I'm slamming a water bottle on the table, that's anger. See, it's not coming in and talking about my fears, of what I'm fearful of losing or afraid of not getting. So when I can just be with a person and listen to their pain and help them to identify the primary emotions, the fears, the shames, the sadnesses. And then when they're able to see what they need to do so that they're being more understanding and accepting of themselves and more respectful to themselves, then they're going to calm themselves down because they're now seeing what they need to do to turn the light on, as opposed to, I can't find my light. Can you turn the light on for me? And I'm not, it's, there's nothing wrong with somebody else turning the light on once in a while, but eventually I have to learn how to be that source. I have to learn how to be that safe place for me to go to. But if I'm beating myself up because of past wounds, then I'm not going to feel safe with myself. And then it's going to be even more important for me to have someone else that I can feel safe with, because I haven't learned yet what I need to do to make myself safe with myself. So when you have somebody that helps me to do that, see, like the therapist does, see, then that's good. See, but the therapist has tools, and my partner, it would be nice if I could confide in them and they could do all those things. But sometimes they're overwhelmed, or they just don't know how, or they haven't gotten that far. They've only taken algebra 1, emotionally, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to do algebra 2. And and then it's going to be scary for them because they can't help me, and so I think I think we're in agreement, because you're talking about the beginning,
So
and
let me just say this real quick, because one thing, and maybe this can help connect some dots, because I think you and I are about to get aligned, John Anthony. But just to give you kind of a real idea of what I'm picturing, one thing that I remember now, I can only remember a few specific stories, and I'm not going to go telling them, so I'm just going to use a broad statement. But one thing I remember from your group, you know, what I mean, I get to John Anthony. Hey man, how are you? I'm good. Yeah, we're calm. Some of us have been at work, you know. I really liked your morning group at 11. Like I could sleep in a little bit and, you know, not be tired from the day. And so, but my point is that in that moment, we were with John Anthony, we were with one another, we were working through things. But sometimes what really upset me, hurt my heart emotionally, was having, when I say having, listening by being a part of the group, listening to what people went through in the event that led them to you, whether it be being arrested by 12 police officers at work because something went from the house to the job and then that's where the police officers found them, right? Or something happened in a parking lot, right? I think in one instance there was something where somebody got angry and they didn't realize that their child wasn't in the car yet and they ran over their child. Thank God the child was okay, right? My point is these are the moments I'm talking about, right? Those crazy moments before we get to John Anthony, right? And so I guess what I was looking for, and I'm not sure that we're going to get any sort of real answers here today. Maybe we will. Maybe somebody will get something that they can take back with them. Is helping somebody before they get to that point. I'd rather just see them get to the here, and then somebody be like, all right, listen, I was doing some research. There's this guy named John Anthony. All right, he specializes in this. All right, I really think it would be beneficial if you go and have a chat with him for 2 hours. He does this initial uh, uh, meeting, and then maybe you can see if you want to do some groups and start to see if that's maybe the route you want to go with your healing. Does that make sense? The advocate, the person that, again, not do all the work,
well,
but just be like, I'm here.
well, of course that makes sense, but see, there's a problem. What we're doing tonight is we are intellectualizing about things, and we're looking at it, and you're having a certain perception that you're trying to communicate to us, and I have my perception of what I think you're saying. And like when you were saying about the first part, and not the other, so I may be in a different perception than you, and that's what makes it hard when we're intellectualizing. So what I find, Jackie alluded to it earlier, when a person has a thing that came up, an actual situation, and they walk through it, see, then that's when I can see where I was using the tools and that's why it worked, and where I stopped using the tools and that's why it stopped working. See, and then I'm understanding myself better because I'm trying to communicate to you. And in order to do that, I need to be more understanding and mindful and articulate about what's going on for me. And so it's having that real thing, because when otherwise we're just talking about a possibility, like, well, what if this were the case? And we can go in any number of ways, but the thing is, what happened? Where did you go? And then how did you get there? See, then that helps you to so that's what, when I'm doing that in group, that's when everybody is able to benefit. But if I get caught up in, and I have in the past, when I get caught up in just talking about something in general, it doesn't connect for that person or for the group as much, because it's Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, he said that, he believed, and I agree, that every person on the planet has that potential situation where if this were this way and that were that way, where they would kill somebody else. We all have that type of situation. Some people might be over here and along the spectrum, but we can create a possibility of what could happen and what would you do if that happened. But what I find is what's more helpful is when we just bring up the things that did happen and we walk through them in a safe environment so you can feel that safe place that you were talking about. And then I can get my feelings validated, and then that can help to alleviate some of my fears so that I can now access the thinking part of the brain or the memory part.
John, what do you do, John Anthony? What do you do if somebody is doing really good for 4 or 6 weeks and then they have an event that leads them to either be removed from your program for legal reasons or an event that has just completely made them not believe in your process anymore? During that, what do you do? Whether it be at home, at work, legal system, what do you do?
I just be with them in the meeting, find out what's going on for them and what they're thinking and how they, what were they thinking, when they did what they did, what was going on, what
Can
was
you give
filling
us
up
a,
their cup.
can you give us like 2 or 3 examples of instances, not people, not names, that you can remember that they were doing so well and then just something happened, whether it be the yellow room or something, they were really able to put their finger on what set them into their fear?
Um, I can't recall, you know, any incidences like that. They've happened. People have fallen off in the wagon, so to speak. And it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect,
No, not at all.
but it's just about being with that person where they are, and it's not about me. Um, for me, it's about creating a space for that person to be in, not about telling them what they should do in that space specifically. Like the way that they should think, like how to give that "Are you a cat" to you. You can respect yourself in many different ways. It's not about only one way that you can respect yourself. And the same thing with understanding and acceptance. So it's not about me telling you to do things a certain way. It's just creating a space for you to do loving things for yourself, respecting yourself, understanding and accepting yourself, caring, appreciating, and trusting yourself.
Can people, families, marriages come back after violent incidences? Has it happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has, right? And I say that because I thought it was really the first word that comes to mind is cool. I'm sure there's a much more a bigger educated word. Respect, cool, are the first two that come to mind. Um, last week when we were doing that interview, you took the time to tell our host or kind of point out that, yeah, when there's an incident, that's what everybody does. He's the bad guy. She's the perpetrator. Get him. But you didn't let that slide, if you will. You made it a point to say that that's like the general public perception. And that's kind of where people can fail sometimes in their own journeys. Do you remember that a little bit? I was proud that you stuck up for people who have had bad incidents, if you will, and it felt like the world was never going to come back together. It felt like it was that was it. That was going to define them. That was who they were. But they came back.
Yeah, well, see, because they did something that people would call perhaps monstrous,
Hmm.
if there's a word, you know, but they're human beings. They're not
Sure.
monsters. And when I stop seeing somebody as a human being, then I'm not going to be helpful for that person to see their own humanness. Martin Luther King has a quote that I've shared a lot of times, and he says, "We have very little persuasive power over someone else when they can feel our disdain for them."
Energy is
And
real.
and sometimes it's real obvious,
Right.
the disdain, and sometimes it's more subtle. But it's still there in a way that makes the person not want to open up, or to do the work that they may need to do to understand themselves better. So, when you were talking about wanting to go to your partner, the thing that you mentioned a couple times was a safe place, a safe
Mm-hmm.
space. And, safe places are important for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and, ideally the home is supposed to be a safe place, but then sometimes things are happening that's not safe. And that's
Yeah.
unfortunate, for internal reasons in the house or external reasons for things that are happening outside the house. And, like getting bombed or something, it's your safe place, it doesn't stay safe.
My therapist said that she advises couples to never have serious talks in the bedroom. That needs to be the retreat. That needs to be the safe space. It shouldn't be anywhere but that. I agree with that. I appreciate
Well,
that.
because you have connections, it's that bedroom becomes the yellow room in a different way.
Right.
The things that you're talking about, are being connected with that room, as opposed to just things when you're together and with each other being associated with that room. So you're doing loving things in the bedroom,
Right.
respectful things, not just sex, but being respectful, being understanding and accepting. And so she's trying to create that space. She recommends, and that's a good thing.
And even to recharge, right? I need to be able to know that when I lay my head down on my pillow, like I'm safe here. Like there's no trouble. There's no bad energy. I'm going to sleep because I would like to start over tomorrow and give it another shot.
Right. But what comes up for me is, when my one daughter is more prone than the other three, but it's a close 1, 2, and then 3. But anyway, it's not fair. It's not fair. That's not fair. And sometimes we don't get that safe space. And that's not fair. But that's what we're dealing with. Then how do I respond, or do I react when I'm not able to get that safe space? What can I do so that I can create one for myself, even if it's just a short timeout, where I say, I got to go to the bathroom.
Well, I was just about to say, that to me, right, is where the John Anthony, that's where you come into play. That's where it's like, all right, my partner has decided to start an argument here in the bedroom. I need to go downstairs and make the living room my safe space. Does that make sense? Like that's where, like you said, I got to give myself the understanding. The are you a cat? Right? And I say that because I have had to use those tools in those moments, right? Stuck in New York City. I want to just lose my mind. I just want to, I can't get home soon enough because I still have to catch the train and then I still have an hour-long drive. Okay. 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 Back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming into the present. See,
Yes.
when you're being in the moment, see, and then doing what you can about, so if I'm sitting on the train, all I can do is sit on it because it's got to take me to the next station. I can't
Right.
get up there to the conductor, or the engineer and say, hey, throw a few more coals in that fire.
Yeah,
And then
you
he
can't
says,
say I have somewhere
this
to
isn't
be.
a diesel. This isn't a steam engine. What are you talking about, dummy?
Electric. It's electric. And then the whole thing happens, and we got to call Johnny Anthony, and then. But you know what? I'll kind of use that as we segue towards the end, and then we can let Jackie talk because we haven't. Um, you know, regarding things like distance, time, right? I feel like they can really impede on our ability to be in the moment. You know what I mean? It's like you can't get where you want to be fast enough. Or, maybe you start your day and you go to work and you're like, I can't wait to get home to do whatever I want to do. And I think sometimes things like that stress us out, right? So one thing I'm really trying to work on lately. And it takes a lot of talking to yourself, right? You know, like going back to what Jackie said, going back to what you were saying, pretty much positive affirmations, right? If you say, I'm tired, I'm really tired, you're going to be tired. If you say,
Look, it's time to
but
sleep. You're tired,
if
it's
you,
time to sleep.
but if you say, oh, all right, I'm tired, but I'm tired because it's a busy week and we've been working and we've had a lot of events this week and we're gonna go. We gotta go. Let's go. Let's go. Right now, you're getting right. You're just getting that final push. You're getting that energy to like, all right, let's go. Last round. Last round. Does that make sense? But if you tell yourself, oh, I just don't want to be here, right? What energy is gonna
Jackie?
come out?
I guess it's me on Thursday because I always say I'm off Friday, Saturdays. So Thursday, I'm like, okay, last round, home stretch, almost done. And then, like, freedom from work and stuff like that. So, yeah, I do get that. And then I do other get instances where it's like, yeah, you know what? I am tired. And that's okay. But no, I kind of go between both things, which is, as he said, like, all right, home stretch. Let's go. As he said, last round. So it's funny you said that because that's like, that is how I feel Thursdays. It helps me get there, which is the last couple of things I have to do.
Yes, yes, I get it. So I'm going to go ahead and give my final thoughts because I think that it was a little bit difficult for everyone to kind of, I'm not even going to say meet me where I was at because that wasn't the intention. Understand where I was coming from. So I'm just going to say it clearly. To those of you that I may be working with an individual who is having mental health challenges, addiction challenges, whatever the case may be, do your best. Do your best. If you are an important person in this person's life, do your best to be that support system. But like John Anthony's saying, to a point, because you have your own things going on. You have your own mental health things going on. You have your own things going on at work, right? But for that immediate issue moment that may arise, keep your cool. Don't think it's the end of the world. Like John Anthony says, bring yourself back to the moment. Help that person just stabilize, right? And then once you get there, try to figure out maybe a little bit of a longer, in-depth plan as far as how to deal with the struggles that they're going through, whether it be therapy, counseling with somebody like John Anthony, peppering in a little bit of fitness or a hobby there, something. We know it can be tough. We know it can require a lot of stamina. We know it can be a lot of things said and done. But if you love the person, my advice would just be hang in there, do your best, try to help them get to where they need to be. If you're the person that they're really, really relying on to just get them through this hard times, try it. Do your best. Stay strong. That's all I've got on this topic of de-escalation in crisis. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think, it's always good to be with somebody who's going to listen and validate what you're going. Oh,
You're here.
am
You're
I?
here. Don't
Am I
worry. You're
okay?
good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Validate what you're going through because sometimes, we can be in our own problems and maybe, to an outside person, those problems can seem maybe like small or hey, like it isn't that big a deal. But, when you're going through something, it feels very real. So I do think it is important to have somebody there who will hear you and listen and so they kind of meet you where you are. So yeah, I do agree with that. That's my final thought.
One more thing, John Anthony. One of my friends once told me something, and it sticks with me to this day. And I said it to my therapist on the same spectrum, if you will, of being kind of just helping somebody who's in crisis. Uh, One of my friends once told me, "You're allowed to feel how you want to feel and need to feel in that moment, so
That was
that you
me.
can sit with those feelings." Was that you?
That was me.
Yes, that was you. But that was some serious life-changing advice, Jackie and John Anthony. I will say because, like some people say, "Oh, come on, it's no big deal." Right now, this is how I want to feel, and this is how I need to feel, and this is where I'm going to sit until I figure it out. That's all I got. Bouncing off of
And
Jackie.
and you're where you are. We all are where we are because of what we're thinking about what we just experienced. And when I understand that, then I can, better navigate the present with my fantasized future, my predictions about the future. And so There's an analogy I used to use. You reminded me of this, Ryan. When I was first talking about the domestic violence movement and I first got involved, I was saying like what it felt like was being at the bottom of a waterfall and catching people or trying to catch people as they're falling off going over the waterfall, you know, and what is really needed is to go upstream to where they first fall into that river before they get to the waterfall. But when I'm upstream, if I'm in my little rowboat and I reach over to help somebody, I have to be careful that they don't pull me into the river.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be grounded physically, mentally, and emotionally when I'm going to help somebody get out of the water into the boat.
Right.
And so when I'm able to do that, I'm going to better be able to be there for other people that I love, and validate where they are and help them to understand what they need to do to bring more love in their life. And if I'm not able to be there like that for myself, then it's going to be harder for me to be there for you because I can't even deal with my own feelings hardly, let alone dealing with what you're going through. So, and
I to-
sometimes those things happen, even though, sometimes our kids, can be in a spot where we just, it's like, it's really hard to be there for them, or our partner or our siblings or our parents, our friends, our coworkers, any person that we have as a relationship, sometimes are easier than others to be able to be there for each other.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, I guess final thoughts are mine, to be continued, if you will. And I think you and I, John Anthony, and maybe Jackie as well, but I know you and I have talked about it in length. Um, you're talking about getting to the top of the waterfall first, right? And we've talked about how in the schools and in the home, right? We if we could teach our children how to kind of manage things a little bit better, right? Get to the top of the waterfall, build a bridge, build a little, boat thing, make sure that they,
A
have all
doc.
the right a dock.
Boat
Make sure
thing.
they have all the make sure they have everything they need to safely navigate the waters that are ahead, right? But that is definitely a different episode. But my point is that it's very layered. There's no one reason, like John Anthony said, I'm talking about when somebody's in crisis, but like John Anthony said, it could be the yellow room, it could be a traumatic event of any sort, of any sort. It could be a traumatic event that you kind of sit with and didn't really know that you were sitting with it, and then something happens. So take a deep breath, right? Bring yourself back to the moment. One thing I will say and always say that while I totally agree with John Anthony and Jackie and most professionals on you having to do the work yourself, if you have a great support system, if you have resources, don't abuse them, but utilize them too as well. If you're not feeling well, let them know you're not feeling well. If you're having some challenges that week, let them know that you're having some challenges, okay? And that's really all I got for tonight. So it's 9:02 p.m. We won't see you guys next week. I will be in Florida. I will be away.
I will be at my daughter's play.
Yay! Excellent. Well, all right, listen, we're going to head out of here and we will see everybody in April. In a few weeks, not April yet.
April.
I'm sorry.
No,
Hold on.
no,
I'm jumping too far. All right, ladies
the
and gentlemen,
25th.
listen, real quick, John Anthony, if they
The
want to get in
26th.
touch with you.
215-750-0323 is a phone number that you can use, or www.supportivealliance.net. Supportive Alliance being one word is another way.
And
Does
Coach
that
Jackie,
phone
if they
go
want to reach.
directly? Sorry, I was gonna say, does
No, go
that
ahead.
phone number go directly to you? Or is it to like an office or something?
It goes directly to my cell phone.
Okay,
It
because I got.
was an office at one point, wasn't it?
Oh, at one point, yeah, but it was,
I'm
why
old.
have an office phone that I can only use at the office when I can, and then they charge me more that if I get a cell phone that I can use 24/7.
Okay.
So
Well,
No,
I
because the
remember.
first time you gave that phone number, I got horrified because I was like, oh my God, he's doxing himself. Why would he just give his phone? I was like, no, it's probably like a work phone number. It's okay.
John Anthony used to have to call him, and he would say on the answering machine, "I probably won't get back to you I probably won't get back to you until 9 p.m. or later." I mean, that might be late, but I know that you definitely took your time afterwards. So, you used to do the whole thing. You used to have to listen to the message. You'd hear the little click. You leave John Anthony a message, and not a text. You got to really hope that he checked his messages, and he did though. He was good about giving you a call back. So.
yeah. Now you can leave text and messages.
All right, everybody, listen, we had a few viewers tonight. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your energy. We hope that you enjoyed, and we hope that you will tune back in next time. We'll see you.